We were. Alrighty. Thank you everyone for attending. I'm going to go ahead and allow everyone to uh, speak if they have any questions. So I will, give me 1 second so I can click on everyone's name. If you have a question during the presentation, feel free to just ask. It's will be kind of informal, so it's not a big deal. I see one person, Brianna. Oh, let me unmute you.
The chat is disabled, Sarah.
Yeah, that's what I was
Ah,
raising my hand for.
okay. How do I do this? I'm not. Okay, let me stop the screen share. Oh, you can put it in the Q&A. You can put your questions in the Q&A. So yeah. So if you have any questions, just please drop them into the Q&A, not the chat box.
Is that
We'll go
also
ahead.
where we should put our names and
Yeah.
organization?
Yes,
Thank you.
please. Okay, we'll get started. All right, well, thank you everyone for taking the time to participate in this funding application technical assistance workshop for the upcoming 25-26 CDBG application program year. This will be the only application workshop that we will be conducting. It's not mandatory, but we obviously encourage anyone who wants to apply to attend. The webinar is being recorded, so once we are done today, it will be posted on our city website under the CDBG page. And we'll just get started. Also, I do want to let everyone know I'm under the weather right now, so the presentation will be going back and forth between myself, Rebecca, and Angelica. So the CDBG program is administered by the City of Paris Housing Authority, and the CDBG program is under the Economic Development and Housing Director, Michelle Ogawa, and myself and Rebecca and Angelica administer the program. Today, we'll go ahead and review the CDBG program, give you guys some background for those of you who are brand new to this kind of funding, and then we will also take a look at the funding application, which has been released. It is on our city website under the CDBG page. So just to get started, a little overview. The CDBG program is federally funded under HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Its primary objective is to improve communities by providing either decent housing, a suitable living environment, or expanding economic opportunities. And this is all principally for persons of low to moderate income. And each year, the city does receive funding from HUD and is responsible for redistributing those funds and ensuring that those people who do receive funding, those entities that do receive funding, have activities that meet one of the three national objectives. which are have projects that will either benefit low moderate income families, aid in preventing or eliminating slum or blight, or meet an urgent need. The city must also show that every CDBG funded program fits into one of these three categories and show that it does also meet a national objective. So there are three national objectives, again, to benefit low moderate income individuals, prevent or eliminate slum or blight, meet an urgent need. And those three national objectives, with those three national objectives, you have to meet one of the three outcomes. Either it can be availability or accessibility, affordability, or sustainability. Essentially, when you guys are preparing your applications and developing your activities, you want to ask yourselves, what type of change or result am I seeking? So it has to fit into one of these three national objectives with an outcome of one of these three that are noted here. Now, our estimated funding for the upcoming year, we do anticipate to receive what we currently receive this year, which is $886,118 in CDBG funds for 25-26. There are statutory caps, so the city has to use this $886,000. 15% of it can go, or up to 15% can go for public services, which is what the majority of our nonprofit organizations, the activities that they are proposing fall under this category of public services. So that means that all those applications for public services, we only have 132,917 to work with. That's what we have to distribute for public services. Up to 20% of that $800,000 can go towards planning and administration. That's primarily for city staff that are working on CDBG to cover our salaries and supplies. And then the remainder is allocated for non-public service projects, which are your construction projects, your housing projects, your housing rehabilitation projects, some economic development projects, and so forth. So getting into the funding application and selection criteria. So there are 16 items that we base the selection criteria based on your application. So first of all, your program you must propose a program that is consistent with our city's consolidated plan. The consolidated plan is a 5-year document. It's a planning document that outlines what the priority needs are from the city for those next 5 years. This is what we want to do over the course of the next 5 years for CDBG when we're trying to address homeless services, public services, and community development services. Also, you have to show a need and justification, project effectiveness, cost effectiveness, and have experience and performance. You also must be eligible as a public, it must be an eligible public or non-public service activity. We do have several activities that are proposed and they sound wonderful, but they're not eligible. So this funding wouldn't be something that would be good for those projects. So we do need to make sure that your activity is eligible. So when you're proposing an activity, when you're writing out your scope of work, you have to show that it involves a goal-oriented process that unfolds over the year, okay? We do want programs that can go for the full year, the full 12 months. We don't fund programs that are just going to happen maybe over the summer. or it's just events. We don't fund events either. It has to be an activity that you can implement over the course of the whole program year. And you have to make sure that when you're describing it, your scope of work, that you show the quality of the program. So it matters how your proposed activity is written. So your scope of work should clearly state how the activity is eligible and how the program regulations will be met. How does it also the activity address the established need that you've seen in the city? You also have to you have to show what the need is. Again, there are several projects that are great, and but when you put them down on paper, if you don't really show that there is a need here in the city, then it more than likely will not get funded. You have to show all the major tasks that's going to be involved in carrying out the activity. Also, you have to show how performance goals will be met and measured. So we want to see, after we do this program, we want to see what did you accomplish? How do you know that it worked? You also have to show how CDBG funds will improve the product or service being delivered. And you have to show a realistic schedule for timely delivery of benefits to your low to moderate income clients. So again, when I say your proposal must include performance measurement system, the productivity measure. So if your project that you're proposing is to increase school attendance, okay, how are you going to do that? You have to show us how you're going to measure that. Also, if you are, you have to show the program impact. So at the end of the year, or maybe halfway through the year, you can show, you can do a survey. You know, you have either qualitative or quantitative measurements to show that what you're doing is working. Essentially, you want to show how will you know that your program is working or worked. So that way you can show if you reapply for the next year, hey, based on these, you know, if your project was to increase school attendance, well, you were tracking these kids, we're getting their attendance records, or the parents are providing attendance records from the schools, and we're showing that participation in our, you know, program here is increasing their desire to attend school. Okay. So it doesn't have to show, it doesn't always have to be quantitative, so it doesn't always have to be based on the numbers. It could be qualitative. If you're asking kids, we've funded in the past in anti-bullying and suicide prevention programs for young kids. If they show at the end of the year that, hey, you know, we took surveys and these kids' self-esteem improved based on from when they first started with us to the end of the program year, that's information, that's a measurement system that you can use to show that we had an impact, a positive impact on the client. And so as an applicant, you also, again, with including your performance measurement system. So what is the measurement system? It's an organized process for gathering information to determine how well your programs or projects are meeting needs. So again, it could be done through surveys. It can be done through actual performance documents, like I said, in the you know, attendance record. It can be anything that you want it to be as long as you're able to show that this is working. Felipe, you had a question?
Yes, thank you so much. I had a question in regards to the updated consolidated plan. On the website, I still see the 2019 to 2024. Has a new plan been drafted? And I'm assuming these application cycles can be based on the new consolidated plan, right?
Correct. Yes, it has been updated, and we will go ahead and put that up on the website as soon as possible.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So again, just want to let you guys know that in your application, please show what you're going to use to measure that, hey, well, my activity is this is how we're going to show that it's going to work. Okay. And why is it important? Well, it's a federal requirement for it's a federal program requirement. Um, we have, as cities receiving the funding directly from HUD, we have to justify continuing to receive this funding because we do reports to HUD as well. We let them know that for each program, I have to give a report every quarter and tell them this is what this program is doing. This is how many people that they've served. This is the accomplishments. Um, we have to tell HUD the story of your activity and let them know that this is a program, this is a funding that we need to continue receiving in order to continue funding these programs. HUD in turn takes it to Congress, and for the past several years now, Congress is always threatening to either significantly cut or eliminate CDBG funding. Thank goodness it hasn't happened, but they need a reason to continue funding us, and so we want to make sure that we provide that. So in order for me to relay that information, we need you guys to let us know as well. Have those tools in place so that when you are funded and carry out your program, you can show the accomplishments. In the application, you will also have to provide a very detailed budget, and it's broken down into two sections. One is for personnel, so if you are funding staff, if you're wishing to fund staff, that's fine. So that's one section, and the second section is for everything else, and we'll go over that. The scope of your program must be city-based. Now, there are parts of the city of Paris that are unincorporated. So those pertain to the county. We have no jurisdiction over them. So we do have a map on the next slide, which shows the incorporated areas of the city of Paris. If you have clients that come to you that say, I live in the city of Paris and I want to do this program under the CDBG program. If they're outside in the unincorporated areas, they are not eligible. You cannot use CDBG funds on them. And one way to see if they are part of the incorporated area is through their address. So incorporated address have 4 digits or less. So for example, 1234 Paris Boulevard is part of the incorporated area. 12345 Paris Boulevard is not. That's county. So they would not be that. They're not Paris residents. And this is the map. So blown up here, this little section. Basically, anything in the gray are tracks that are not eligible if you're doing a service area. Okay. And we'll break that down further in the presentation. But the incorporated area is delineated with the red. Those are the city limits. Anything outside of that, they are not Paris residents. Also for CDBG, they do have to be incorporated city of Paris residents, and they have to be low to moderate income. So there are income limits to receive this funding. HUD puts out the limits every year. We're still working off of 2024 income limits for Riverside County. So For household sizes of, for example, a household size of 4, the bottom line right there is the maximum limit. So for household of 4 is $82,000. A household is defined as as all persons occupying a unit. They don't have to be related. It's just any person, any body who is living under that roof. They're considered part of that household, whether they're related or not, whether they contribute to the household expenses or not. So when you are, doing your application, you have to make sure that that you guys have the capacity to be able to conduct intake and review um, all the requirements from the applicant that they are eligible to receive this funding. Your scope of work must also must be determined as eligible activity under CDBG regulations and guidelines. I've included there the regulation citation. If you're looking to see it, it does outline a good amount of different activities that are eligible and those that are not eligible. If you want to take a look. Basically, your activity has to either create or restore housing, create jobs, improve public facilities, or provides a public service. If you are proposing a project that involves job creation or any other economic development activity, please sign up for a TA appointment with us to discuss. Economic development activities under CDBG are a little tricky, so we do want to make sure that we review that with those applicants who are wishing to take part in something like that. Also, you have to show how you will ensure that carrying out the activity is benefiting low to moderate income persons, either based on area or individual eligibility. Basically, how are you guys going to establish eligibility that your clients are eligible for this funding? And then also, subrecipients must document and report financial and program CDBG funded activities on a quarterly basis. If you are doing a construction project or a housing rehab program, you're going to be doing more reporting than just on the quarterly basis. You do have labor reports that you will be submitting. I do want to make sure that everyone understands that CDBG is a very, very, very heavy document heavy funding. So you have to have the staff capacity within your organization to carry this out. So there's a lot of there's just a lot of reporting. There's a lot of documentation that you have to receive from the applicant at the beginning. So just make sure that you do have that staff capacity, that you do have someone there that can handle that. You also must be a legally constituted nonprofit organization at the time of application or a government or tribal entity to submit an application. You have to provide your 501c3 tax-exempt IRS status letter, your IRS determination letter, your articles of incorporation, and provide documentation of good standing from the state of California at that link provided. You also have to be registered with the System for Award Management at sam.gov. So this is where we will go ahead and you will register if you haven't already. Once you're registered, then you will print out your entity profile, which looks like this. And this is what you will submit with your application. So you will submit, this is like 2 pages long, so you will submit both pages. What we're looking for is the circled area here, and it says if you have any active exclusions. So even the city of Paris has to be registered as well. So this tells us that you are not debarred from receiving federal funding. If you do have exclusions, that means that you are federally debarred from receiving federal funds and you are not eligible. Your entity, your organization is not eligible to receive federal funding. It does not cost to register for this. So if you get on a website by some chance that's asking you to pay, do not do it. Go to sam.gov. And the last thing here is the applicant must also provide current documentation that you possess the adequate financial and management systems. So you do have to provide your current 990s, provide a copy of your annual report with financial data. If your agency expended $750,000 or more in federal fundings in your last fiscal year, then you do have to submit a single audit. You also have to provide a copy of current business license or any local and state permits as required for your agency type. You do have to provide a copy of your affirmative action plan, and there are certifications in the application that you have to complete and sign. Let me check if there are any questions on the application before we get started on anything else. See, I don't see none. Okay. So, just to review, oh, Felipe?
Yes. You mentioned for economic development programs to request a TA appointment, do we send an email to you to request that appointment with those available dates on the website, or who do we send it to?
You can send it to me and Angelica. Yeah,
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Okay, so the national objectives, we're going to go over the three types of national objectives. Everyone is going to fall under the low mod area, and low moderate is broken down further into 4 different kinds. So we'll go over that. Okay, so the first one under low mod is the area benefit. This is for projects that mostly are used for our construction projects, our construction and our housing projects, housing rehab projects. So these activities benefit all the residents in a particular area. And those areas have to be at least 51% low moderate income. So that's where we go back to that map where we had all those color coding. If you're wanting to do, even if it's not a construction project, if you have a public service project, and let's say you want to do daycare, but only for a certain area of the city. You're not opening it up to everyone in the city of Paris. You're just wanting to do your project in this one area. Let's say it's the downtown area. You want to do daycare services for residents who live in the downtown area. The downtown area is over 51% low mod, so that would work. But most times, this is used for our construction and our residential rehab projects. So again, for those, that project has to be done in a location that is over 51% low mod. So it's assisting all those individuals that live within that service area. Again, primarily it's for street improvement, water and sewer lines, neighborhood facilities, or facade improvements in neighborhood commercial districts. So an area is considered low moderate income if there are a sufficiently large percentage, again, at least 51% or more of low mod persons residing in that area. Again, refer to the CDBG map. Now, here's an example. So right here where the red dot is, that is, I believe it's Patriot Park. We did a project there. We did a park project there. Not a park project, I'm sorry, a football field there. This area is in a low moderate census tract. It is at least 51% low mod. However, when HUD came and audited us, they said, no, it's not. Why not? It's in a low moderate census tract. It's going to benefit these individuals. Their thing was, well, look to the north, look to the west, south, and east. There's no homes there. It's undeveloped. How are people going to get there? Are they going to have to cut through the fields? Um, there's not developed sidewalks in that area either. Some, but not completely. So HUD said, no, you're not, this isn't correct. You can't do this. You shouldn't be doing this. Even though it was in an area that was deemed 51% or more low moderate income. So if you're wanting to do a project, a construction project, housing rehab project, and you're only focusing on a certain area, or if your public service project is only wanting to serve people of a certain neighborhood, you have to make sure that, yes, it's 51% low mod, but that there are residents, there are houses, there are people living in those areas where your project's going to be located. Melissa, you raised your hand. Is the application available in a Word doc? No, it's not, but I can make it into a fillable PDF. I'll go ahead and do that and have them repost it on the city website. Let's see. So if you do have an area benefit project and you want to discuss further, send myself or Angelica an email and we can discuss it. Let's see. The next one is under low mod is limited clientele. This is where most of our public service projects fall under. Because under limited clientele, there are 4 subgroups there. So the first group is, or the first option is that your project is only going to will serve everyone as long as 51% of your total served are 51% or more low moderate income. So let's say your goal is to serve 100 people. That means that 51 of those people have to show that they don't exceed those income limits that I showed you from HUD. That means that the rest of those people who are not, those can be over income. They can be millionaires. They can still participate. Okay, as long as 51% of your total served is documented to show that they are low moderate. That does mean though that you do have to you still have to get income documentation from everyone because you have to show which ones are meeting income, which ones aren't, so we can calculate the percentage. So there's that one. The second one can be you can limit it to say, no, I just want to make sure that I'm only serving low moderate income individuals. So if I come to you and I say, hey, I want to put my kids in your after school program, here's my household income, and you tell me I'm over income, I can't put them in there. That means you're saving yourself the headache, you're not going to do it, you're just low moderate income individuals. The third option is nature and location. So that means that your project is in a location that by that location, the people that you're serving are low, moderate income individuals. For example, you put after school services for kids, and you're only going to serve the individuals that are living in this subsidized housing apartment complex. that project is in a location and of such a nature that you know that the people who are living in that subsidized housing are low income. Okay? So that's what nature and location means. And then the fourth one is presumed clientele. HUD has a list of individuals that if you're only going to serve people from that list, that they know they're low moderate. So for example, senior citizens, if they're 62 or over, HUD considers them a senior citizen. If your project is going to only serve presumed income senior citizens, then you don't have to collect income information from them. You still have to make sure that they're incorporated City of Paris resident. Um, and then they're gonna have to show their age, proof of age. And yeah, you can serve them. You don't have to collect their income because HUD says they're presumed low moderate income. So just breaking on down a little bit more, 51% of participants, the first option was the 51% rule, that you can serve everyone that you wanted as long as 51% of your total served do not exceed the HUD income limits. So the pros is that you get to assist clients that are over income. You know, as nonprofits, you guys don't like to deny services to anyone. So this helps you not to deny. The con is you do have to gather income information from everybody. Okay, and that's a lot. If you want to do option two, where you're only going to serve low moderate income individuals, that means that you're only going to serve people that show that they are not exceeding those income limits. Fine, great. The pro is that you're not gathering income information from everyone because you can tell them, hey, yeah, we have this program, but based on these income limits, are you over income? Is your household all your income from everyone, every adult living in that household? Are you over this income? If they'll know, they'll say, yes, we are. Okay, great. You don't have to, I guess, waste any more time. They know that they don't qualify, so move on to the next individual. The con is that your services are limited to a specific clientele. And again, nonprofits do not like to turn away anybody from services. So that's the other thing. Nature and location. Okay, third option. Be of such a nature and in such a location that it can be concluded that clients are primarily low moderate income. So for example, a daycare center serving residents of public housing complex. We haven't had any projects or proposed projects use this, but if you feel that this is what you want to do, you are more than welcome to use this one. And again, limited clientele. So this is the list the HUD has provided that say these are the individuals who we recognize as being low moderate income already. We just know they are. So if your program is only going to assist this. Now, if your program is open to everyone, including these individuals, that's not presumed clientele. This is only if you're going to be serving these individuals. So for example, we have a program that only serves abused children. So that's a presumed clientele project. They don't have to collect income information. We do have another program that is serving only senior citizens, 62 years old. Okay, so they just verify the age and residency and they don't collect income information because that's the only individuals that they serve. So abused children, battered spouses, elderly persons, 62 and over, homeless persons, illiterate adults, persons living with AIDS, migrant farm workers, and severely disabled adults. This is the list that HUD has provided that are presumed clientele. There is a caveat for severely disabled adults. And this only relates, again, only relates to adults, can be of the following. So the adult either has used a wheelchair or special aid for 6 months or longer, or they're unable to perform one or more functional activities, such as seeing, hearing, speaking in an understandable manner, dressing, eating, paying their bills, preparing meals. So basically, they can't function the day-to-day activities of life, or are prevented from working or doing housework, or have a condition such as autism, cerebral palsy, Alzheimer's, senility, dementia, or mental retardation, or are 65 years of age and are covered by Medicare or receive SSI. So that is, if your program is to serve severely disabled individuals, this is what that means. And we'll go over to the next national objective, which is slum and blight. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because um, to have slum or blight, we have to have a designated area as slum or blight, and at this point in time, the city does not. But HUD does allow for activities to help prevent or eliminate slums and blighted conditions. They can prevent or eliminate slum and blight on an area basis, or spot here and there, or be an urban renewal area. There's two types of for area basis. There's two types. Either it has to be a public improvement in the area that are in general state of deterioration, or requires a delineated area, and at least 25% of the properties throughout the area must exhibit one or more of the following deterioration condition. Like I said, we don't have any areas that the city has designated as blighted. So we've never used this. But if you have a proposed project that falls under this condition, this national objective, please reach out to me so we can further discuss. The third area is under urban renewal, but the urban renewal program no longer exists. I don't know why HUD hasn't updated this. And the last national objective is urgent need. So an urgent need addresses emergency situations. The typical activities are infrastructure, interim assistance, and rehab of community facilities. And then to meet the urgent need national objective, the test is that the existing conditions must pose a serious and or immediate threat to the health or welfare of the community, public health risk. So think COVID. And the existing conditions are of recent origin or recently became urgent, so within the past 18 months. And the recipient, so your clients, are unable to finance activity on its own, and other sources of funding are not available. So COVID was an urgent need. When COVID hit, we moved our funds over to this national objective to address the public health risks that COVID presented. At this time, we hopefully do not anticipate any needing to use this urgent need. This also can be used if we do have a big earthquake. The individuals out in LA that are experiencing the wildfires, they could use this. So for those cities that are being affected that receive CDBG funds, they can use this urgent need. So if you do have a public facility and improvement project, the eligible ones are streets, sidewalks, water and sewer. Neighborhood facilities include parks, playgrounds, recreation center, facilities for special need population include homeless shelters, group homes. Any ineligible activities under this would be maintenance and repair of public facilities. So we cannot use CDBG funds for operating costs. The only exception is for handicapped accessibility. And we cannot use CDBG funds for buildings for general conduct of government, so city hall. So we can't use CDBG funds to rehab my office because there's no benefit to a low moderate income individual there, to the public, to a resident. But we can rehab to, let's say, make the front door ADA accessible to this building. If you are doing a construction project, like I said, this is for construction and residential rehab, possibly economic development may have this. And it's labor standards. So labor standards reporting. Davis-Bacon applies to all construction contracts over 2,000 involving CDBG funds. The exception is housing of less than eight units under one owner, and it does not apply to acquisition of property. Basically, Davis-Bacon requires workers to be paid at least the minimum wages provided by the Department of Labor. Walker, I see you have your hand raised. You can unmute now.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Hi, Sarah. Sorry you're feeling
Hi.
under the weather. Hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.
This just reminded me of a question I had since I saw the physical application as the PDF. Under the personnel for the budget, I see 5 lines. If we have more than 5 lines, how do we want to incorporate those?
You can just include an attachment to it.
Okay, great. And just on a related basis, since it's a physical application now, and we'll print it out, do you want us to keep the sample CDBG agreement in the submission?
No. That was just for your information.
Okay, wonderful. And then my last question is, I know there's separate addresses for the mailing and physical address for the Paris Authority, Housing Authority. Is it only going to be the South D Street address or either or?
It would be the South D Street address to submit your applications.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Okay. And continuing with Davis-Bacon, all bids and contracts subject to Davis-Bacon must contain a standard clauses on these requirements. You do have to hold a pre-construction conference to review the requirements with your subs and contractors. The prime or general contractor is responsible for full compliance, including lower tier subs. And the contract administrator will be required to enforce the requirements and provide information to contractors. So they are to be receiving weekly payrolls and doing site interviews. Davis-Bacon wage decisions. Our decisions are needed to determine prevailing wages by worker classification. Wage decisions are obtained through state or online. You do have to post the most recent recent wage decision, and that's applicable to the job. And all contractors must use the right type of classification for each job type. Another labor standards is Section 3. So this requires training, employment, and contracting opportunities for low-income residents and business owners of project areas. It applies to construction and rehab projects. It applies to projects that are $200,000 or more in HUD funds, and it applies to the entire project. So if you have a project and you're requesting CDBG funds to help fill in that gap for the project, if even $1 CDBG funds touch this project, then it's applicable to the whole thing. So for example, if you are let's say rehabbing the senior center here in Paris, and you have funds for the majority of it, but maybe you still need the funds to rehab the dining room. And that's what you're requesting CDBG funds for. CDBG Section 3 is not going to apply just for that dining room. It's going to apply to the entire thing. So that's one thing that we need to make sure that everyone understands who have construction projects that they're proposing, is that once one penny of CDBG funds touch the project, this triggers a lot of extra requirements as far as labor standards. Under Section 3, you do have to make a good faith effort to meet through outreach and advertisements. There are other labor laws, which include the Contract Work Hours and Safeties Act. So that's the 40-hour week or overtime paid. The Copeland Kickback Act, which requires payment once a week and only permissible deductions. And that's where the certified payroll comes in. When your prime contractor sends it to you, you have to review it to make sure that they're getting paid on a weekly basis and that they're only deducting permissible deductions. And the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is the minimum wage and overtime requirements. Okay, so for those of you who did have an economic development project in mind, some of the eligible ones are micro enterprise activities, commercial rehab. There are special economic activities, community-based development organizations, technical assistance to businesses, infrastructure to assist businesses, and job training. Those are the eligible ED projects. A certified a community-based development organization may carry out 3 kinds of projects. So they can do community economic development, they can do neighborhood revitalization, and energy conservation. If you're doing job training, it has to be done through, well, it should be done through a certified CBDO, because it is not categorized as a public service. So that means if you are doing job training through a certified CBDO, you won't be part of that 15% cap. You'll be part of the other part, the remaining 65%, which is a bigger pot. So something to think about if you are doing job training. But a CBDO doing economic development activities do trigger public benefit standards. So that's why I say ED under CDBG is kind of tricky. So if you do have that project, or considering a project like that, let's discuss. The public benefit standard. So mandatory for the following activities. So for special economic development projects, and that is the regulation, the citation. Public improvement projects classified under low moderate job, and creation or retention where more than $10,000 per job in CDBG assistance. This is not applicable to micro enterprise activities or commercial rehab. The public benefit standard is not applicable to micro enterprise activities or commercial rehab. All right, let's get into funding application eval and scoring criteria. So it's out of 100 points and it'll be scored based on the following. So 30 points for need. Does the problem and need statement meet priority? 30 points for project effectiveness. Does the program scope and design clearly link goals with outcomes? Does program scope measure productivity? Does program scope measure program impact and performance? Also, cost effectiveness, 20 points. Does the cost per person or unit justified or for funding for level of funding? Experience is 10 points. Are you experienced in undertaking similar projects for what you are requesting? And this is something we added last year, 10 points for timeliness. Are you able to execute the project and draw funds in a timely manner? This extra timeliness one that we started doing came from basically as a city, we were not expending the funds fast enough. We were kind of sitting on them because our subrecipients were not pushing forward with their activities or their construction projects. And so we were on HUD's radar, and they basically said, you need to expend this money or you will lose it. You will lose, we were talking over $1 million, $1 million. So we need to make sure that applicants are able, they have the staff capacity within their organization to carry out everything that you are including in your application in a timely manner. Public service projects, are you drawing down your funds every month? You are expected to draw down funds every month. Construction projects, do you have a realistic time schedule? Are you requesting more funds than what you really need? Is this something that is shovel ready? We need projects that are ready to go, not something that is still it's just a conception of a project. We need things that are ready to go because we will not be sitting on funds. When we go to monitor you, we do monitor you starting January, February. At the end of the second quarter, which is December, we look at everyone and see where they are with drawing down funds. If you have not drawn down at least half of your funds, then we will recapture what you should have already had drawn down. If you are if you're already backlogged in not being able to draw down your funds, then we will have to reevaluate your project and possibly recapture those funds. So timeliness is a very serious thing. I know it's only 10 points, but we do need to make sure that you are able to draw down your funds in a timely manner. Your full application deadline is on Friday, February 7th. In your application, you must include that you have met the minimum eligibility requirements. You completed and signed application, completed and signed certifications. You do have your budget proposal with allowable costs. You can come in person and drop off your application. You can, FedEx it, UPS, mail it in, that's fine. You cannot email it. We will not accept any emailed applications. And just as an FYI, know that you will be required if you are selected for funding. So this is not something that you need at the application stage. But if you are funded, then you will have to submit verification of insurance coverage, which is commercial general liability, auto liability, and workman's compensation. If you don't have any employees, we have had in the past subrecipients who were the work was all done by volunteers and no one took any salary, then the workers' compensation can be waived. But if you do have workers, you do have to have that. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and we will review the application. Oh, Tom, you had your hand raised? All right, let me share this part here. So I don't know if everyone has had the time to go to the city website and look at the application. If you go to cityparis.org, go to departments, come down to um, CDBG, scroll down, the application and handbook is right there. So we'll go ahead and open it up. And let's see. So this gives some introductory information on CDBG. We've already gone through all this. This right here illustrates the priority needs that were identified the in the consolidated plan. So the priority needs are right here. These are the associated goals. It does talk about the action plan, again, the limits of our available funding, how everything is distributed. You have to be living in the incorporated area, the map, who can apply for CDBG funding, and the minimum criteria for receiving funding. Here are examples of eligible activities. It's not all inclusive. If there's something on there something that you want to do that's not on here, we can touch base and see if it is eligible. Ineligible activities are listed there. Again, the application evaluation and scoring is there as well. This kind of breaks it down a little further of what we're looking for. The submittal criteria, again, please submit it to 11 South B Street. This is our new office building. We are located across the street from City Hall, right behind the public library, the Cesar Chavez Library. And you don't need to put we just need one full application. You don't need to bind it. You don't need to put it in folders, anything fancy. Just clip it, put it in an envelope and drop it off or mail it in. This is the timeline. So we do have one-on-one technical assistance meetings during these dates. Times are just varies depending on our schedule, but go ahead and reach out via my email, which is right above here. And so just to give you guys an overview, once the applications are submitted, then staff and the CDBG committee will review and score applications for recommendations to City Council. Between March 7th and May 13th, we'll have the 30-day citizen public comment period and public hearing for the preliminary and final recommendations. So we anticipate going to City Council on April 8th for a public hearing for the preliminary recommendations. We cannot go to public hearing for final recommendations until HUD has released our allocation. I do have a date there of we should be able to go by May 13th if HUD submits everything beforehand. just know that the preliminary recommendations and the final ones will more than likely be slightly different, because we are basing it on receiving what we currently receive this year. But if they increase it or decrease it, it's always just a little bit, it's usually not too much. There'll be some slight variations in what we have in our recommendations. But again, like I said, if HUD hasn't released the allocations, we can't go for finals. So we would be waiting until they do. We are anticipating that contracts will be distributed May 20th if we go to council on May 13th. And then anyone who was selected for funding will have to attend the virtual subrecipient contract workshop at 2 p.m. on June 3rd. Again, if final recommendations haven't been received by that date, then we will obviously change that date. And then July 1st is the beginning of the new fiscal year. Monitoring and record keeping. This is everything that you guys have to maintain. Like I said in the past, it is a very heavy documentation program. So you will have to keep records, client files, financial files, administrative files for a period of 5 years in a fireproof cabinet or drawers. We will come out once a year to monitor. And again, we do desk monitoring as well. So we just kind of review your monthly financial submissions as well as your quarterly reports to do desk monitorings. Right here is the performance measurement systems, the income limits, again, the system for award management, make sure that you are registered. Again, there is no fee to register, so if you're going through the sign-in or the sign-up process and it's asking you to pay, then you're probably not on the correct website. The insurance requirements only if you are selected for funding, not at the time of application. And let's see, so the application here. This is the funding application submittal checklist. Please use this to, let me enlarge this. Please use this to make sure that you've submitted everything that is required. One original application with all the attachments. If you forget something, we will not make changes once you have submitted your application. Your documentation of good standing from the state of California, that is this right here. So this is the link that I posted in the PowerPoint. Let me go ahead and put it in the Q&A just so that everyone has it. Or I can put it in the chat if you can access that. And so you would go here to check status. Let's see. Let's try. So you would put in your entity name, should come up. Click there, generate the letter. This is what you need to include to satisfy this requirement. Okay. It does show here entity is in good standing, so forth. Okay. Next, you'll have to show your state and federal tax exemption letters, fiscal documents for nonprofit agencies. Make sure you submit your financial statements, your 990s, your State Form 199. For governmental agencies, submit their financial statements. This does not apply to internal Paris departments. And for any agency that's expended over $750,000 in federal funding for the year, you have to submit your single audit. Submit your written financial management procedures, board approval showing that you were given permission to apply for this funding. If you're doing a construction project, include your construction schedule, as well as a bidding process that you will undertake for your proposed project. And then the rest are all the certifications that are attached at the end of the application that will have to be completed and submitted. Let's see. Again, this is for contractors for construction projects. You will have to also provide for job descriptions of all volunteers utilized for the proposed CDBG funded project. And who is ever completing the application, print, sign, date, and we'll go on to the funding application form. This is very general, general information, your agency description. Provide your agency mission statement, and then the funding application here. What type of project are you proposing? Is it a new or continuing program? If you are currently funded for this fiscal year and are returning, then you would select continuing. If you are currently not being funded for CDBG funds right now, then you will be considered new. Also show, are you going to be reporting as persons or households? That's different. Households, if you're going to be reporting under household, that means if you serve two kids from the same household, that means you served one household, not two. So just depends on how you want to count. So how many unduplicated beneficiaries? So if you put 5, that means 5 households, or does that mean 5 persons? So that's why I need you guys to indicate which one there. Just acknowledge that it is for Incorporated City of Paris residents. Also, what method will you be using to collect beneficiary data? Addresses where you're going to be performing the service for capital improvement projects and housing activities. Provide the area, the neighborhood. Right here is where you will describe the problem or unmet need that you're going to be addressing. This is not your project description. This is just the problem that you're seeing. So if you're seeing that there's a lot of truancy in the city of Paris by high school kids, and that means that's going to justify you wanting to put in or create a program to increase school attendance, for example. So that's the problem, is high truancy rates. Kids aren't going to school. Well, our project is addressing that problem. Also list any studies or census data or market data used to determine that the problem requires action now. So we need to see if we have a high truancy rate, then where are you getting your statistics from? Show us that justifies the problem, the need for this. 10 is where you will put down what your scope of work is. So be as detailed as possible. This is your full program description. If you need more pages, feel free to add anything, add extra pages to your application. And then 11 is telling us how you're going to measure. This is your performance measurement system. How are you going to show that by doing this, we're going to collect this information to show that our program was effective? Is it surveys? Is it, how often are your surveys going to be? Is it documentation from schools? It's whatever it is that you want it to be, just let us know how you're going to show that it's working. Your intervention, your activity is working. Here, number 12, just show what outcome your project is going to have. And then briefly explain how the proposed program addresses the goal selected above. That's just a brief explanation. You don't have to go into great length. And then here, number 14, this is where you're going to select, are you doing low moderate clientele under presumed benefit, low moderate, the 51%, the only low moderate income person, nature and location. Low moderate area, again, is for our construction projects. If you're doing housing rehab, this is where you would do this right here, low moderate housing. If you're doing jobs, low moderate jobs. I don't anticipate anyone wanting to do slum and blight, and at the moment, we do not have any urgent community need. Break down how many employees are going to be needed to administer the program, any volunteers. 16, describe your marketing efforts. We really need to show HUD how you are marketing your activity to individuals, especially those marginalized communities, so limited or non-English speakers, deaf, blind, and disabled individuals. How are you going to make them aware of your program? Describe if you have any, if you're partnering with any other organizations to deliver the service. For construction projects, describe any land tenure issues. For construction, also indicate if you are aware of the labor standards that are required for number 19 and 20. And if you're doing a housing activity, how will permanent housing affordability be maintained for number 21? If you're doing any relocation as part of your project, let us know how many are going to be displaced. This is highly discouraged. And let's see, federal regulations again for CDBG requires that anywhere that you provide a CDBG service, it does have to be ADA accessible. So we need to make sure that either your project is going to make this thing ADA accessible or it already is. So financial narrative. Okay, so we want to make sure that applicants do understand that they will be restricted to 20% cap on the administration/salary portion of their requested budget for staff. That is not working directly with beneficiaries. So for example, when I discussed that we had a 20% cap for planning and administration, that includes salaries. We are passing that on to you as well, only for those individuals who are not working directly with the clients. So for example, if you have a program to do housing rehab and you put aside, say we award you $100,000, 20% of that can go towards salaries for the individuals who are working on the project, but they're not necessarily working directly with the individuals. So that we have the people who are preparing the reports, the people who are doing the intake, the staff that's working on scheduling inspections and so forth. Okay, but if you have a project where we give you $10,000 to do tutoring for after school tutoring, your whole $10,000 can go to pay the tutors because they are working directly with the client. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please raise your hand, let me know. Um, but we do want to make sure that everyone acknowledges this. Also, describe how the proposed project is cost effective and your budget is reasonable. Describe your organization's financial management for record keeping, accounting systems. What do you use for tracking funds? How are you going to segregate and track your CDBG activities? So CDBG funds should not be commingled with the rest of your funds. It should have its own designated account. It should be separate from the rest of your general funds, the rest of your other funding that you've received. It should not be commingled. We want to know what's the average cost per client for your proposed project. And how you're going to income qualify individuals. Does your agency comply with generally accepted accounting principles as well? And this is the project budget information I was talking about. So this is the first part. We just want to see what your entire, the funding for your proposed project will be. Because we know most of the time your CDBG is not sufficient enough to fully fund your project. So we want to know how much of other funds do you have to go towards this project. So amount secured would be you have an award letter. Amount not secured is we applied for it and we're still waiting to see if we got this. Okay. This one right here, this is the one that's broken up in two parts. This is the detailed budget. So letter A here shows the personnel. So like we were asked previously, if you have more staff than what's allowed in here, please just add an attachment. I would suggest that you kind of group people. So if you are, like I said, doing a tutoring program, well, you can, instead of listing every single tutor, you can put for the tutors, 5 tutors at this rate and so forth. And then list any other staff that may be working on that. Letter B here is the non-personnel budget. So anything, any consultants for construction and housing and rehab, the demolition, the A&E, the construction, the fees, and so forth. Foods and consumables is generally it's not an eligible expense unless that is your program. So for example, we fund a Family Service Association for our senior nutrition program. Their program is to feed senior citizens. So we do fund the food that they're using to feed the seniors because that is the program. What we won't fund is to have water at your location or, snacks, for a meeting. That's not something that is eligible. So if you have a question on the foods and consumables, please send me an email before you submit your budget. These are the certifications that are needed. Just review them. sign them. We do have the certification regarding lobbying. Again, there is no political work that can be done for CDBG. So you're certifying that you will not be doing that. Debarment and suspension. This is why that SAM.gov registration is required so we can see if you are on the federally debarred list or not. Drug-free workplace acknowledgement. The Civil Rights Act and Americans with Disabilities Act. Section 504. Section 3, this is just for construction projects only. So if you don't have a construction project, just put NA on it and submit it. Anything that's not applicable within the application to you, just put NA on there. Use of real property, conflict of interest and procurement policies. Again, the audit requirement, if you spent $750,000 or more in federal funds in a year, you do have to submit a single audit. So we need to know how much you've expended in 1 year for the past 23-24 fiscal year. So we need to know if a single audit is or is not required. Certification of affiliation, and then your project contact information sheet. So generally, staff likes to have one contact person that they deal with. We do ask for a secondary just in case, but we like to stick with one program day-to-day person, one primary fiscal contact. We've learned that jumping around and having anyone and everyone answer questions on CDBG just kind of, it just muddles things up. So please list who your day-to-day contact will be, their backup, and then the fiscal day-to-day contact and their backup. Board of Directors governing board's economic interests. And we have attached a sample CDBG agreement. This is one of our samples for our internal home repair program, but essentially it's the same. It's the same format. It's all the same. We just entered, we designed it for the funding organization. So instead of City of Paris Housing Authority, we would put your agency information on there. But this is the current years, and this is what we have. So it's a template. We use it. Go through it and make sure that you are in agreement with everything that's here because we will not alter it. At the end, it does show the different attachments. So here you would have your approved CDBG budget. Here you will have your reimbursement schedule. So if you see here, you do have to submit invoices every month. Again, this is to help with our timeliness. We need to make sure that you are submitting every month and drawing down funds every month. This is the income limit. So if they will change by the time the new fiscal year rolls around, so it will be updated. This is the quarterly performance schedule. So this is when your quarter reports are due. If you are a construction or housing project, then this is when your labor standards reports will be due. And that is it. Do we have any questions? Feel free to unmute or drop it in the Q&A. Again, we do have the technical assistance appointments available. Just send me an email, and when you are, give me at least two to three available dates that you're looking for, and we'll try and accommodate that. Is there any questions? I know this was a lot of information. Okay, so I will go ahead and we will update the application to be a fillable PDF and repost it on the website. This recording will be made available on the website as well. And we will also put the slides from today's presentation on the website as well. So if no one has any other questions, thank you for joining. And if you have any questions later on, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.